It's good to see you today. It is June 16th. I hope everything is going well. We are in, let's see, we're in 2 Kings today. Our reading is chapters 5 through about 3/4 of chapter 8. Chapter 5 deals, obviously, with Naaman, as we see on the screen. And I hope you're familiar with the account. It's a lovely, lovely account. Remember who Naaman was? King of Syria. And he was a leper. He's not going to be a leper for much longer, though, as he's going to be healed. You might just pause and think, and by the way, Naaman, it comes up in the New Testament. They get sort of mad at the Lord when he references two Gentiles who were blessed, Naaman being one of them. He's not just a Gentile, he's a commander of the army of the king of Syria. So you have that whole account. Then you have Gehazi and everything that he does with his shenanigans, as the leprosy clings to him, there in verse 27. Then we have the axe head recovered. Some of these more peculiar, all the miracles are peculiar, I suppose, but this one, the axe head that was borrowed, being lost, and then Elisha comes over and makes it float. Now, verse 8, now the king of Syria, again, who was Naaman? Naaman was the commander of the army. The king of Syria was making war against Israel. And you have the account where, just read a little bit, and I'll stop paraphrasing. He consulted with his servants, saying, my camp will be in such and such a place. The man of God sends to the king of Israel, saying, beware you don't go there, because that's where the Syrians are going to be. The king of Israel sends someone to the place of which the man of God had told him. Thus he warned him, and he was watchful there, not just once or twice. The heart of the king of Syria was greatly troubled, because they're thinking, how can they know my plans? And so he calls his servants, and he says, show me which of us is for the king of Israel. And one of the servants said, none, my lord, it's Elisha. Elisha tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom. And he says, go and see where he is, that I may send and get him. So it's the account where they show up to Elisha, and Elisha's servant says, oh, what are we going to do? And Elisha says, there's more of us than them. And then they open their eyes. The Lord opened the eyes of the young man. The mountain was full of horses. They were surrounded. And so those who had come from the king of Syria are struck with blindness. Elisha says, oh, this isn't the place you're looking for, and leads them to Samaria. So they get to Samaria. Elisha says, okay, open their eyes back up. And then the servant, the king of Israel, saw them. He said to Elisha, shall I kill him? And Elisha says, no, don't kill him. Feed him. Set food and water before them. Then, verse 24, Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathers all the army and goes up and besieges Samaria. And there's a great famine in Samaria. And you might just notice, they besieged it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver. What's going on here is inflation. That they're dying. And actually, they're not just dying, they're actually starting to kill each other and turn to cannibalism. As the king of Israel is passing by, a woman cries out, help me. And the king says, if the Lord doesn't help you, what can I do? What's troubling you? And she talks about boiling her own son, and her neighbor promised to boil her son the next day, but she didn't do it. She's upset. And it's just a horrible, horrible thing. But that's what was happening as Samaria was besieged. Okay, come on to chapter 7 now. Chapter 7, Elisha promises food. Tomorrow about this time, sea of fine flour shall be sold for a shekel. All of a sudden, inflation's going to come down, and things are going to be what they should be. And he says it's going to happen tomorrow. And the officer of the king says, even if God makes it rain and pour, how can this be? And he's told, You will see it with your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. Okay, chapter 7, you have an account of 4 leprous men. And I tell you what, this was the passage I really wanted to look at. Chapter 7, verse 3. Okay, so the situation is Samaria is besieged. They're told tomorrow it's going to be better, and they're like, how can it be better tomorrow? This is how. Verse 3. There were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, why are we sitting here until we die? Okay? That's, these 4 lepers are like, what are we going to do? What are we doing? Verse 4, if we say we will enter the city, the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. I don't even know how they would get in. I don't know, they're probably thinking, why would anybody want to get in? There's a famine in there. They're starting to eat each other. So the famine is in the city, we shall die there. If we sit here, we die also. We are lepers, after all. Now therefore come, let us surrender to the army of the Syrians. If they keep us alive, we shall live. And if they kill us, we'll only die. Basically, we'll die quicker. And they arose at twilight to go to the camp of the Syrians, and when they had come to the outskirts of the Syrian camp, to their surprise, no one was there. For the Lord had caused the army of the Syrians to hear the noise of chariots, and the noise of the horses, the noise of a great army. So they said to one another, look, the king of Israel has hired us. They said to one another, look, the king of Israel has hired against us the king of the Hittites and the king of the Egyptians to attack us. Therefore they arose and fled at twilight, and left the camp intact, their tents, their horses, and their donkeys, and they fled for their lives. And when these lepers, these 4 guys, come to the outskirts of the camp, they went into one tent, and ate and drank, and carried from it silver and gold and clothing, and went and hid them. Then they came back and entered another tent, and carried some from there also, and went and hid it. Then they said to one another, we are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, and we remain silent. If we wait until morning light, some punishment will come upon us. Now therefore come, let us go and tell the king's household. So they went and called to the gatekeepers of the city and told them, saying, we went to the Syrian camp, and surprisingly, no one was there. Not a human sound, only horses and donkeys tied, and the tents intact. Okay. What points might we make from the account? One point is this. Remember where it starts. Everyone has choices. The lepers say, if we go into the city, there's a famine, we're going to die. If we stay here, we're going to die. Let's just go to the Syrians. Turn ourselves in. If they kill us, we'll die. But if they allow us to live, we'll live. Life is all about choices. And I'm mindful of what Peter said. Where shall we go? He's saying, what choice do we have? You have the words of life. Joshua, at the end of his life, talking to Israel, choose for yourselves this day whom you'll serve. Back to Peter. Peter says that in response to Jesus saying, do you also want to go away? Choices. Life is all about choices. That's what we have to choose. We have to choose. It's up to us. Blessings or curses. The choice is ours. That's the first point I wanted to make. Another point is, God really doesn't need our help for His will to be done. In a big sense. God can do it all on His own. The lepers, they show up to the Syrian army, and there's nobody there because God had made them hear the sound of an army, and they all flee. Back within the walls of the city of Samaria, people are eating themselves, and because they're so afraid of the Syrian army, there is no Syrian army. It's gone. They're not there anymore. God did not need their help to defeat that army. Did God need Israel's help to defeat the Egyptians? Nope, He did it all on His own. He did it all on His own. Did God need, when the Syrians come to Elisha and his servant, and the servant says, oh, what are we going to do? And Elisha says, there's more of us than them. But he's talking about God. Did God need Elisha's servant to do anything? It's like, no. God does not need our help. Now, Do we still have our role to play, and does God still use us as instruments of righteousness? Yes. But we should never think, well, God needs me. No, we need God. We need God. God did not need Israel to take care of the Syrians. God could do that all on his own. So the lepers show up, and they go into one tent, and they're taking silver and gold, and you can tell it's nighttime. And they're like, this is, to all of a sudden go from 4 lepers, they're still lepers, by the way. They go to one tent, and then they go to another tent, and then they say, okay, hold on, stop. Nobody else knows this. We need to share the good news. And so they do. And I think that's something we can learn from. We need to share the good news. It is not ours to just keep. We should keep it for ourselves, but we should share the good news with others. And so the lepers come to the gatekeeper, and they share the good news. So the gatekeepers, verse 11, called out. They told it to the king's household inside. So the king arose in the night and said to his servants, let me now tell you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we are hungry. Therefore they have gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, when they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city. One of the servants answered and said, please let several men take 5 of the remaining horses which are left in the city. Five of the remaining horses. There ain't that many horses left. What do you think they've been doing to the horses? Usually you eat the horses before the children, to be blunt about it. Look, they may either become like all the multitude of Israel that are left in it, or indeed I say they may become like the multitude of Israel left from those who are consumed. So let us send them and see. All right. So the lepers come and they share the good news. And we'll say this as we close out for the day. Don't be surprised if people don't believe you. Because the king of Israel doesn't believe it. They're hiding out in the field. I'm not sure I'd believe it either. So there's 2 ways to look at it. One is, don't be surprised if people don't believe you. At least the first time when you share the good news. But also, another way to look at it is, he investigated it. They investigated the claim. And that's what we do as well. We still have to walk by faith. We can't be like Thomas and say, unless I touch it, see it and touch it, I'm not going to believe. We can't do that. We have to walk by faith. But we can search the scriptures for ourselves and see whether these things are so. So there's 2 different ways to look at it. Don't be surprised when people don't believe you, but maybe the more they investigate it, maybe they will come to the faith for themselves. So it's an interesting account, that's for sure. But I hope it's been helpful for you as we think about applications to our lives today. Appreciate you. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you join us for our next look into God's Word.